Hello, hi, good morning. It's the Red Pepsi here. I'm bringing up a video response basically to a conversation I had on Facebook with a friend of mine who I work with, a work colleague. But he's a Jehovah's Witness, and we got into a conversation I didn't quite expect to have actually, but it turned out it transpired into something on the cross, the shape of the cross. And a couple of people got involved and asked a few questions and stuff. Anyway, he aired some of his beliefs and quoted my dear friend Mr. D. And I just wanted to put a couple of responses actually, because I'm not going to print them all out, I'm going to verbalise them. Anyway, on the shape of the cross, he put a long email, very impressive looking email on my Facebook page on the shape of the cross, hundreds of lines long. You put in, thanks Mr. D, which is really quite interesting actually. Quite impressed some of the other readers of my page, but I wasn't quite sure, considering the fact that he was saying that he's so pleased to be in a situation where he can have answers to a lot of his questions and stuff. I wonder just how much this he's actually fully researched himself. I'm not saying he hasn't researched what the Sati believes, but if he's actually fully 100% researched what he's written here, because in this long entrance on the shape of the cross, okay, he hasn't written his own answer. He's written, or dare I say, and don't mean to insinuate anything we're saying, but he's copy and pasted this. Okay, it's reasoning from the scriptures. It's a Watchtower Bible Tract Society publication. It's a fantastic book actually. It really is eye-opening onto the belief system of the Watchtower Bible Tract Society and how they defend, how they reason with the scriptures, how they reason for their beliefs, their belief system. Really, it's a really great book, because it lets certainly a non-Christian have an insight into the logical thinking behind the beliefs which the Watchtower Bible Tract Society hold, and the teachings, how they teach witnesses about what they believe, which is hugely important. It's hugely important, and this is one thing actually you cannot fault the Jehovah's Witnesses on. Okay, Christians, listen up. You should be listening to understand this. When the Watchtower representative, when the minister, the missionary, the witness trying to do his weekly amount of door knocking comes to your door, you may not agree with what he believes, but he knows what he believes, and he knows why he believes it. Okay, and this book, if you were to read this book and the Bible references etc. they give, and the scholarly authoritative quotes they give, quotes from the Encyclopedia Britannica, from the Companion Bible, and many other authoritative quotes in here, you would actually be convinced that the people who wrote this book knew what they were talking about and had researched things fully. But what I thought I might do, long story short, I'm going into a few things, is talk about some of the quotations that are in here. Because like I said, he's copy and pasted big chunk of, well, virtually the whole chapter on the shape of the cross. Why, and of course the Watchtower believes it's important to understand that they have this cross, this image of Jesus being crucified, but it's not the traditional T-shape, which traditionally Catholics and most of actually all other Christian denominations hold to, a traditional cross shape. Okay, it's their interpretation of it is an impalement, nailed, a single nail, a single spike through the hands, a single spike through the legs, and Jesus would have been nailed like this on the torture stake, as it goes on to describe in here. I just want to respond just with a few quotations from the reasoning book. This is why I actually say, you know, if asked the question is whether my friend has actually gone on and researched himself exactly what he's quoted. Okay, the Watchtower have gone on for a long period of time on about the shape of the cross, especially since Judge Rutherford's time, who was the second president of the Watchtower Society, and they've actually made it quite important as far as their faith goes, that Jesus wasn't crucified on a T-shaped cross, and bring issues on. So let's give us just a couple of these quotes which they've used in here. One of the first major ones that comes across, I've already mentioned it already, was the Encyclopedia Britannica. Encyclopedia Britannica, Volume 6 of published in 1946, page 753, where he asks, you know, what are the historical origins of Christendom's cross? And it gives a quotation from the Encyclopedia Britannica, but what it misses out is this: it's the death of Christ on the cross necessarily conferred a new significance on the figure, which hitherto had been associated with a conception of religion not merely non-Christian, but in essence often opposed to it. They've missed that out in their quote. Basically, it's with the argument of the Watchtower saying it was a pagan form of execution, and the cross is a pagan symbol. Yes, it was. Okay, the whole history and the prophecies of how Jesus, the Messiah, would die was a mystery to the Jews, because when the Jews wanted to kill someone, they stoned them. It's what they did to Stephen. Is they stoned him. It was their form of execution. It was their punishment. The person would be taken out under the law of Moses and be stoned to death. So the idea of having someone lifted up, as the scripture foretells, and Jesus using phrases such as, well, obviously in the New World Translations it uses torture stake, but most other recognised Bibles, Bible translations, use the phrases "take up my cross and walk and follow me." That's the thing being used. It's about the cross shape. It's about someone being lifted up and having being crucified. It brings up the fact that the word stauros means a stake, a single stake on the ground, and quotes such as the New International Dictionary and Vine's very important dictionary there as evidence for this, so being a single stake. They bring up the issue of exelon being a piece of wood. What they don't actually mention in the same scriptures is that the piece of wood can mean more than one, and they quote on their reasoning book on page. Their reasoning book is page 89. Page 89 from the reasoning book. Okay. Page 89, the Imperial Bible Dictionary. The same. Okay, and this is what my friend has put here from the Imperial Bible Dictionary on the reasoning book. He's quoted as saying, the Greek word read the cross in many Bible versions, torture stake, in New World is Staros. Okay, New World is the New World Translation. It's the Bible they used. The Imperial Bible Dictionary acknowledges this, saying the Greek word staros properly signified a stake, an upright pole, or piece of paling on which anything might be hung, and which might be used in impaling (brackets, fencing in) close brackets a piece of ground. Okay, this is what they miss. But a modification was introduced as the dominion and usages of Rome extended themselves through Greek-speaking countries. Okay, that's something they missed there. Okay, so it says a modification was made. And then goes back to the quote, even amongst the Romans, the crux from which our crosses devised appeared to have been originally an upright pole. And then the quote continues in the Bible Dictionary, but not in New World Translation, and always remained the more prominent part. But from the time that it began to be used and as an instrument of punishment, a transverse piece of wood was commonly added. About the period of the Gospel age, crucifixion was usually accompanied by suspending the criminal on a cross piece of wood. Okay, and that quote is found in the Reasoning book of page 89. Okay, also it goes to quote on with different quotes from the Reasoning book. An excerpt by, let's read it down here. The cross in ritual architecture, art by G.F. Vack, and shows that the cross was originally used in pagan worship. But it does not go on to quote this on page 3. In all this, the Christians of the first age would have rejoiced, claiming it as a worldwide prophecy of the cross of the Redeemer. Okay, that's not included in the Reasoning book, nor is this included in Worship of the Dead by Colonel J. Garnier, who's quoted next, as saying that the cross was a pagan symbol. But on page 225, you would read, if you read the original publication by Colonel Garnier, sin crucified is salvation, but it is only by the cross that the power to do so is obtained, and that cross is the cross of Christ. Okay, so they're quoting people, or shall I say misquoting people, to give weight to their arguments when that's not what these guys are actually saying at all. We've gone on, I've already put other videos on concerning Joseph Lepidus, who is often quoted in illustrations by the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of having a man on a torture stake, okay, placed with his arms placed above his head, single spike all the way through, and also a single spike through his legs, on him into place. And the Watchtower say this is the example of what a Roman Catholic believes the torture stake would have looked like. Well, if that was the only form, they would have an argument. And of course they emphasise the Roman Catholics, who prefer this shape of a cross with the crucified Christ on. Very important to Catholics, that is. But once again, what they neglect to say is that in this image of which Lepidus actually drew, and in his books and publication, there's another like 13 or 15 other drawings of other forms of crucifixion. Most of them the prominent T-shaped form. Maybe someone might be hung over the back of the cross, being nailed or tied to the crossbeam, or there'd be someone crucified on an X. The Romans actually in history were quite fond of actually crucifying someone in rather peculiar shapes. Sometimes it would just be a tree stump, and they would references of people